Parthiban Kanavu, English translation by Anand Kannan, narrated by Sujatha Anand. Book 3, Chapter 22. Is it really you? Kundavi stood motionless under the tree for a while. Vikraman did not turn to look at her, but kept his gaze fixed on her reflection in the water. She picked up a pebble and threw it in the water. It sank in the water and splashed some water on Vikraman. It had the effect that she expected. He turned to look at her. His eyes widened. He gazed at her intently and eagerly. His lips parted as if he was about to say something, but he just sighed and turned around to look at Kaveri. After standing for a while longer, Kundavi walked away from the tree and sat beside him. Vikraman looked at her 2 or 3 times, only to look away each time. Kundavi got up saying, "I will be leaving then." Vikraman looked surprised and asked, "Did you talk?" "Yes, I am not mute." Vikraman gazed at her with a look of wonder, but did not say anything more. Kundavi started walking away. "Why are you leaving?" asked Vikraman, sounding emotional. "It didn't look as if you would speak," said Kundavi, returning to take the seat beside him. "I was afraid." "Afraid of a young girl? If you are delicate enough to be afraid of girls, why did you travel alone?" "I was not afraid of you. I was wondering if this is part of my fever hallucination. I thought you might disappear if I spoke," said Vikraman. "What do you think now?" asked Kundavi with a smile. "I am still not sure. If you don't mind." "If I don't mind?" "I would like to make sure," said Vikraman. He raised his hand and moved it close to her cheek. She did not disappear as she did in his fevered dreams. Nor did she turn her face away. He touched her soft cheek. His hand stayed there, reluctant to move away. She grabbed his hand and returned it to its position. "Were you able to make sure?" "Yes, and I was able to confirm several things." "What sort of things?" It is really you, not a product of my imagination." "And?" "You are not a celestial being, nor a statue. You are a real human that I can touch and feel." "Anything more?" "I also found I can't live without you anymore." Kundavi momentarily turned away, wiped her eyes and asked, "Do you remember me?" "Wrong question. You should have asked if I was able to remember anything else. Day or night, happiness or suffering, your face has been etched in my memory. I have thought of nothing else for the last 3 years." "It has only been 10 days since we met on the streets of Mamalapuram. Where did 3 years come from?" asked Kundavi, with a mixture of smile and disbelief on her face. Taken aback by this question, he paused for a while. "Has it been only 10 days? Did you think you were sick for 3 years? Must be my fever that made me feel that way. I feel like I have known you for years. Have you seen me before we met in Mamalapuram by any chance?" He thought for a while. "I'm not sure. My mind has still not entirely cleared. Further?" "Further? I seem to lose my train of thought when I gaze into your large eyes. I'm lucky if I can remember who I am. Tracking days and months is a lot to ask." "You are still in fever-induced delirium. You are totally incoherent. You should not have come here alone." "No fever at all. See?" He stretched his hand. Kundavi touched his hand. "You are burning up." "Perhaps, but it is not due to fever." "Okay, look away from my eyes and respond to this. Do you remember who you are and where you are from, or have you forgotten everything?" "Of course. I sat here at the riverbank and reminded myself of all that. I came here from Senbaga Island for selling gems." "Do you remember meeting me at Mamalapuram?" "Yes." "Do you remember me asking you to come to the palace to sell gems to the princess?" "Now I recall it, yes." "Why didn't you visit the palace? Why did you have to leave overnight and travel alone along the deserted route?" Vikraman paused a bit and asked, "Do you want me to respond truthfully?" If gem traders are allowed to speak the truth on occasion, please do so. The truth is that I was afraid that I won't be able to leave you if I had met you again. I now realize that the fear was well founded. Is this how men of Senbaga Island lie and mislead women? Do they teach you this as an art form? Asked Kundavi with a mocking note in her voice. You forgot something. I live in Senbaga Island, but I was born here in the Chora land. I grew up playing on the shores of this holy river Kaveri. I learned to swim in its currents. I grew up roaming the pleasant mango orchards and coconut groves of this country. When I was in Senbaga Island, I used to shed silent tears, missing this country. How I long to return here. That desire has been fulfilled, thanks to your help. How am I going to repay that favor? Said Vikraman, visibly moved. Why do you thank me? You should thank Lady Kundavi. The Emperor's daughter, Princess Kundavi. She is the one who allowed us to carry you along. It's her that you need to thank. Is that so? It appears that there is still plenty for me to learn. I am still wonderstruck on realization that I am back here and sitting on the banks of Kaveri. It is hard to grasp other things. Can you please explain in detail how I got here? To start with, what is your name? Don't you remember? I introduced myself in Mamalapuram. I can only remember meeting you, nothing else. My name is Rohini. I am a friend of Princess Kundavi. Kundavi had introduced herself as Madhavi when they met at Mamalapuram. As she had made up the name on the spot, it did not stick to her memory. Vikraman said, Rohini, what a beautiful name. Many nights in Senbaga Island, I have looked at the sky and admired the star Rohini shining near the crescent moon. But the star is no match for the radiance of your eyes. I have seen through your guise, said Kundavi. Guise? Asked Vikraman, worried. You are not a gem trader at all. You are a poet. You are one of those nomadic composers. You never had gems in your bag. After a thoughtful silence, Vikraman said, I can't show you now, but someday I will prove to you that I was indeed carrying gems. I am definitely not a poet. If I did acquire some poetic skills, it was all due to you. On seeing the radiance of your face. Stop mocking me. Mocking you? Vikraman resumed after a pause. If you don't like this, I will stop. However, I will be grateful if you tell me how I got here. You were lying unconscious in fever in a Mahendra Mandap on the route from Kanchi to Uriyur. If you tell me how you got there, I will tell you the rest of the story. Vikraman told her briefly of his journey from Kanchi. Kundavi listened to this and said, The emperor's son Mahendran and daughter Kundavi were travelling to Uriyur. I was in their group. After we crossed the wild river, we heard a cry for help from the pavilion. I peeked inside. I recognized you as the trader I had met in Mamalapuram. I asked the princess for permission to take you along. She was kind enough to agree. She has allowed me to keep you here until you recover fully. I saw your face in what I thought were my feverish dreams. I now know that it was not a dream at all. It may be. I visited you often when you were sick. Princess Kundavi is the one to thank for that too. Vikraman seemed lost in thought. Kundavi interrupted his thought. I have told you so much about the generosity of the princess. You have not said anything expressing gratitude. I can't thank anyone from the Pallava royal family. If you met Lady Kundavi in person, you will not speak like this. You might forget me then. I most certainly won't. 1,000 Kundavis can't be a match to you. Changing topics, a question. Are those two here in the palace now? Who are those two? The brother and the sister? Prince Mahendran is not here. He had to return to Kanchi. A traveller from China is visiting Kanchi. He has come here after visiting several countries in Bharat. His name is strange. Zuan San. The princess asked to receive and honor the visitor as the emperor was busy. The prince had to leave in a couple of days after he got here. Do you see how our emperor is famous in faraway kingdoms? Is he well known where you are from? Yes, the emperor is famous there as well. Is it not an honor to be ruled by such an emperor? I heard that the Chola prince refused to pay tribute to the Pallava Empire and instead chose to live in Senbaga Island. Do you understand why? What is your opinion? Vikraman met her eyes and said, As far as I am concerned, I'd prefer to be independent in Senbaga Island than live in the Chola country and be ruled by someone else. Are you sure? You won't stay here even for my sake? Vikraman looked at her with a sad expression and said, I hope you won't place me in such a quandary. They both recognized each other and were trying not to acknowledge that they knew. How long could they keep that up? End of chapter 22.